Hey, this is Shane. Welcome to episode 269 of Shane Plays Geek Talk. Thanks so much for pressing play. I really appreciate it. This episode, we're talking with married cosplaying duo SimpleTricksNonsense. They're really cool people to talk with. Really enjoyed it. We had a lot of fun just chatting and geeking out on the show in addition to talking about cosplay. And don't worry, we talk about cosplay quite a bit, but they're just fun to chat with and geek out with in general. By the way, I do recommend that if you can, that you go to the show notes at shaneplays.com for this episode, or else just search for Simple Tricks and Nonsense Cosplay and just check out their cosplay. We talk about some specific examples during the show, so that might add a little bit to your experience of the podcast. But if you can't do that for some reason, don't worry. I mean, you can still completely enjoy the conversation. Real quick, before we get to the main episode itself, just want to remind folks that last episode 268, was The Legend of Drizzt with Mike Whitwer, who is a repeat guest on the show. I always enjoy having Mike. We talk about his newest book, which is The Legend of Drizzt Visual Dictionary from DK Books, which is an amazing resource, not just for Drizzt Do'Urden fans, but also just like the Forgotten Realms and D&D in general, in a lot of ways. So definitely check that episode out if that interests you at all and you missed it. With all that said, on we go with the show.
Shall we play a game?
Why, yes, I believe we shall.
Oh, I got a live one here.
Getting geeky all up in your podcast. It's Shane Plays Geek Talk, a journey into the things we love. I'm your host, Shane Stacks. Thanks so much for pressing play. This episode, I'm really excited. I've been wanting to do a cosplay episode forever, and for various reasons, it just hasn't come together. So finally, after all this time, I'm getting to do an episode on cosplay, which, as I've learned, being sort of at cons and just talking to people, and I have friends that are cosplayers, it's much more than just quote unquote dressing up. There's a lot more to it than that. There's a whole thing around it, which we're going to get into during this episode. And my guests are just phenomenal. Some of, if not the best cosplay I've ever seen. It's just really spectacular. Over the past several months, I've been following this couple. It's Johnny Havoc and Newt of SimpleTricksNonsense, which is a cool name, but it completely belies the effort and just professionalism that goes into. This is Hollywood level stuff. Just really good. So go ahead. I guess I'll let Johnny go first just because he's on the top of my screen, and then we'll go to your lovely wife.
My name is Johnny Havoc, or just John. It's great being here. I mean, you and I have talked online a few times, and we've shared our love of Warduke. So
Warduke, yes, sir.
You're in good company when you find a Warduke fan.
Well, that's probably, and we'll get more into it later, but your Warduke is probably what got me going. Who are these folks? And then the more I saw, just the varied cosplay that you do. A lot of it is like, loving on G.I. Joe or Masters of the Universe, but not all of it. I mean, there's a really wide range of cosplay that you do, but your Warduke is just spectacular. And I've shared that around, and anytime I share one of your Warduke photos, people go nuts. So it's actually, awesome. Today is Wednesday, and there's a thing called Warduke Wednesday. We just happen to be recording on Warduke Wednesday. So giving the Duke his due, as my friend Levi Combs would say. And then moving on, Newt, welcome to Shane Plays. Glad to have you. Feel free to say hi and introduce yourself however you'd like to.
Hi, I'm Newt. Also, my real name is Rebekah. Newt's just a nickname. I'm a cosplayer, an artist, and a model, and a certified bra expert, for whatever that is.
A certified what? A certified
Bra.
what expert? Bra
A
expert.
certified
Okay.
bra expert.
Okay, I didn't know that was a thing, but see, that's the amazing thing about this show. You learn something new every day. So, how do you get? You know what? I'm not even going to go into all that, but it's a thing. So now
I work for Victoria's Secret. That's why I am a certified bra expert.
You work or worked? Are you still with
I
them?
I work for Victoria's Secret.
Okay. Wow. I didn't even know that was a thing, but hey, why not? So the multifaceted Newt. I have to ask you, does your name have anything to do with the character from Aliens? It's like they mostly come out at night.
That's
mostly
been my nickname before I even saw Aliens, because when I was a little girl, I looked just like that.
Okay.
So my family was like, "Oh, you're Newt."
And so
ratty
that's been
hair
your
and
name?
everything. So, and it just stuck because I haven't changed too much.
So do you ever practice saying that? Do you ever go, they mostly come out at night?
Yes.
Mostly. Yeah. So, well, that's cool to know. Have you two ever done Alien or Aliens cosplay? Have you ever done Colonial Marines or anything?
Yep,
Yeah, she dressed up as Newt.
Yep.
Oh, seriously?
Yeah.
Yep.
How hard
It's one
was
of
it
those
to
things he pressured me into doing it, because I'm like, I
into doing
want
Newt?
to cosplay a little girl. And he's like, do it. You're short enough. So
Yeah, there was a bunch of us, and it was a Dragon Con, and we had already gotten our Colonial Marines costumes, and we had an alien, and we even had like a female predator. That was the whole theme. We had what did we have? We had a Ripley. We had a Jonesy, who was like somebody's baby that was dressed up in a little cat suit, and we had a Bishop, a very convincing looking Bishop. Yeah. And then Newt, we're like, we got to get you a costume. And one of our friends took us shopping, and we went to a Target.
This was at the con. This was the night.
Oh, really? So you didn't even know you were going to be Newt until it happened.
We're like, we can do this. We can make this costume. So we went to a Target, and we bought like a little kid's sweatshirt and some, they weren't even name brand Oshkosh Bagosh coveralls.
Right.
And since they didn't have the little stripes in them, we bought blue Sharpies, and we sat there in the hotel room, like tracing the little lines to get the lines in the
That's
coveralls.
Perfect.
And then 2 cans of spray paint and, some makeup. And it was,
and then you've got Newt running around in the ducks.
Yep.
So that's great. Is there any photographic record of this, the Colonial Marines and Newt? Yeah. All right. Love to see that. Is it on your Instagram? If I crawl through your Instagram, or
the one place I know it's at is on it was my profile picture for a while, being him as Newt in the Colonial Marine.
Yeah, that's great. I love that somebody was Jonesy. That's the best.
Yeah.
That's taking it to the next level when you make sure that somebody's Jonesy.
Right.
So, yeah.
Well, one of our friends had just had her baby. So the baby was still small enough to be carried around. So
and all her costumes were revolving around the baby. So she did Labyrinth, and she did Ripley with Jonesy. So
was she the Jennifer Connelly character in Labyrinth?
Yes.
Or did she? Okay. Wow, that's pretty cool. So if on the off chance people don't know, Jonesy was the cat in the first Alien movie, where Ripley literally endangers herself for several minutes to go save the cat. So
I would totally do the same. So,
I love that. Yeah, it really showed. I don't know. She's like, I'm not letting this cat, or any part of humanity get left behind with this critter, this evil alien xenomorph. We have a beta fish that's named Xeno because my son got into xenomorphs a few months ago and started buying all the xenomorphs toys. And so
that's awesome.
Yeah, so we said, what do you want to name the beta fish? He named it Xeno. So there you go.
That's awesome. You're hopefully, right.
Yeah, hopefully it will remain a fish. There won't be any weirdness. I haven't seen any face huggers, so hopefully
that's quite a collection for him to start too.
Yeah, right.
There's not going to be any end to that because there's so many and they keep coming out.
Yeah, there's so many. He's telling me, he's like, there's this one, that one. He's telling me what all the different, because the toys. And I know we're already off on a tangent, which means it's an official Shame Plays episode. The toys are all color-coded, and they're different from like what you would know from the movies. They're like the blue means one thing, and the red means, and like they have different roles. Where in the movies it's basically you've got Queen and like workers, and the workers will
So
kill
is
you.
he focusing on like the NECA figures or the
No, he's more like
the alien,
the retailer,
Alien versus Predator?
Yeah, it's more like you go to
the homage to the Kenner ones that they used to have.
They're like if you go to like Walmart or Target or something, they're hanging in the regular toy aisle. They're all one color. They look good though. They're not bad sculpts for. They're not bad sculpts for.
I look at them and I have to fight myself to not get them because I know there's so many out there.
Yeah, there are. I mean, it's a whole. Yeah, it was the whole thing. I mean, they, like I said, it's not. It's not just. There's not just the Queen and the worker. I mean, which is of course that's smart because they're making all these different ones that you have to chase down and buy and everything. So, okay. I'll bring us back around. So we started talking about cosplaying. Newt and Jonesy talked about cool toys. Never a bad thing. But I wanted to bring it back. I really want to kind of get into, and I'll get into a little bit of the history of how both of you got involved into cosplay. I mean, you're both, you're married. You're both heavy cosplayers. So I want to get into all that. But what, and this might be a little bit heavy coming out the gate. So if you want to think about it a little bit and we can come back to it, it's whatever you want to do. But I want to ask both of you, I'll start with Newt since we started with Johnny a while ago. What does cosplay mean to you? Like, what does it mean on a other than just quote unquote dressing up, which it's much more than that. Like I know people that are in the 501st with the trooping and, they're like, no, we're not just dressing up. There's a whole community and a deeper level of thing going on here, and they're raising money and all that, the bad guys doing good and all that. Mm-hmm. That if people don't know what I'm talking about, there's the people that dress up like stormtroopers and imperial officers. There's a really organized organization around that. But Newt, what is like for you? What does cosplay mean? Like, because it's such a big part of your life. What is it?
Cosplay is a way to showcase and honor the things that we love, as well as just being a really fun hobby. It's also a way to kind of, for me, to show, like, it's funny to say take cosplay seriously, but to kind of take these characters seriously, like, when people say things like She-Ra and He-Man's a silly show, I'm like, well, this is how it can look if it was done in a movie kind of thing. So it's another way to just showcase what you love, because we really only cosplay stuff that we truly love.
So, and since you've brought up She-Ra, I complimented Johnny on his Warduke, which his Warduke is just amazing. But I think the cosplay that I went, wow, and it was the other cosplay that really got me paying attention to you at Simple Tricks and Nonsense, what you're doing together. You did a She-Ra, but it wasn't just She-Ra. It was like it was cosplay based on a concept art or something of She-Ra. Yes, and it's amazing. I mean, it's some of the best. It's definitely the best She-Ra I've ever seen, but it was like that was a work of art. So if you don't mind, tell us a little bit about that She-Ra. What was the inspiration for that again? And like, how long did it take you to make it? And,
So I'm friends with William Stout, the artist, and I've always loved his artwork and what he's done with the Masters of the Universe, the 1987 movie. What he's done with
so he was one of the concept artists for the.
He was the main concept artist. Okay. There were some others, but he was the main concept artist, and that was his She-Ra. And I've always liked it, and I've always wanted to do it. But he was thinking of going to PowerCon, and I was like, well, I'm going to PowerCon. If you come to PowerCon, I'll make your She-Ra into a costume. So he's like, okay, done. So he came to PowerCon. That's why that's the main reason I did that, and I just love it because I had already done the original She-Ra, so it was time to do a different version of She-Ra.
Yeah, I've seen both, and both your She-Ras look great, but that concept art She-Ra, I don't know what else to call it, is just, it's on another level.
It's very heavy metal magazine, like it's very 80s and just awesome. That's what I loved about it.
I could see that. So that was one of his concepts for the 87 movie, and you made...
Yes.
Okay. All right. How long did that take to make? Like, how long does it... You guys don't throw your cosplay together in a day. I mean, unless it's a new costume, right?
Right.
From the Aliens movie. So how long did that take to do?
That one wasn't that long. Probably 3 weeks.
Okay.
Yeah, it was under a month because we started it. It was the last costume I started before PowerCon, and because there's not a lot of armor on it. The longest thing was the crown to make because I just hand sculpted that. But yeah, it did not take long because most of it's all sewing, and that goes pretty fast. And there's not a lot of clothing to it. It's pretty skimpy, so that makes it easier as well. Yeah, it didn't take long to make.
That's cool. I mean, it looks amazing, so I would have assumed it took longer. What was the reaction at PowerCon to that?
William Stout loved it. He was over the moon with it. Surprisingly, a lot of people knew what it was. I was expecting people to be like, I don't know what that is. When I took it to Dragon Con, nobody knew what it was. One person knew who it was, but at PowerCon, there was several people who were like, oh my god, William Stout Shearer. It probably helped that he was there, so it jogged people's memories a bit. I was surprised at how many people actually recognized it.
Well, that's cool. So is PowerCon, I actually had a note to mention, because you both on your social media mentioned PowerCon a lot. Is that one of your main cons? Is that like a Masters of the Universe centric con, or what's going on with PowerCon?
It used to be a Masters centric con, but it has, since last year, it has turned over to toy related cons. So it's more open in its variety. So, but the first year it was primarily Masters related. That's why I was like, well, that's the perfect place to bring that concept here, because if anybody's going to know it, it's going to be there. And that was right. And even though it's more toy based now, there's still all the same people are still going pretty much. So it's still a lot of people will know Masters there.
So Johnny, I'm going to bring it back to you. What does cosplay mean to you, sir?
That's hard. You know, one of the weird things, and this isn't to, let's say, overly inflate it, but when you look at like prehistoric people and the things that they admired, or the things that they wanted to try to personify, you know, because you see ancient peoples and they're wearing, you know, like wolf headpieces or bear headpieces, or you know, you see indigenous people and they're dressed up as a falcon or a hawk or a vulture or something like that. And it's that there's this thing that we admire or that we want to aspire to. And the closest we can really do to get to that is to dress up like it, to attempt to emulate it, and to try to capture that feeling, or, you know. So I almost feel that like with our pop culture mythology, that we find characters that we admire, and that the closest thing that we can get to that is to dress up as that character, you know, and then comes into that's one aspect of it. Another aspect is, well, there's the challenge factor of, well, how do you accomplish that? How do you take something, you know, that's coming off of a cartoon or a comic book that's two-dimensional,
yes,
and how do you make it three-dimensional? You know, and how do you give it more substance? Because we're all old enough to remember the older comic books where almost every costume looked like it was just painted on the person.
Right.
Every muscle, everything. You know,
right.
There's nothing to the imagination. There was, you know, pre Rob Liefeld putting pouches on everything, you know, is like everything looked like it was painted on. So how do you translate that to an actual wearable costume and then
make it last through a con? Because if you're a Vampirella, you're like, well, how is that going to stay in place, you know?
Yep.
So it's the same thing. It's making it something off of paper work. Yeah.
Yep. So that's it's to take something and show the world, like, this is what I like, this is what I admire, and then at the same time, this is the work I put into that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely there's an art to it. There's a not an art. I mean, there is an art, but there's also a hands-on trade to it. Like where it mixes all these things: imagination, inspiration. I've seen some really cool cosplay. I'm the kind of person, like when I go to cons, I get impressed when I see somebody take a risk and do something that either most people hadn't heard of or nobody else does. Now, I'm not putting, if somebody wants to go as a very common, that's fine. I mean, like you said, it's about what you love. But like, I like it when I was at a con a few years ago and somebody cruised up as Rufio from the Pan movie or the Peter Pan movie. And yes, instead of the quote unquote Peter Pan movie, I mean the Hook movie from 1991. And it looked really good, And these days they're kind of taking a risk because a lot of people might not even know. They just think it's some random, bizarre anime character or something like that. Mm-hmm. So, but like I said, it's not to put out I see, like I said, it's what people love. I see plenty of the guy wearing a wife beater and the Wolverine claws doing that kind of Wolverine. What do they call it now? Is wife beater even a cool thing to say anymore? But you know what I'm talking about, that kind of weird t-shirt. So with the claws, I see a lot of that. But I still respect that, or we've all seen Daddy's Little Monster, right? There's a lot of that's like, hold on, my cat wants in. Hold on.
Okay, I wasn't sure if that was our cats or your cats because we have.
No, come here, Danny.
Oh.
No.
Okay, I thought that was one of our cats.
No, that's one of my cats. She's a big dummy. Come here. Come on. There you go. You can meet Buster.
Oh.
Yeah,
we have a cat that looks like that.
Yeah, we have a Genji too.
Yeah, he's cosplaying as Jonesy.
We have an Australian friend that she went to school for art. She started out going to art school, and then I guess some way through it, she's like, you know what, I'm never going to make any money at this. So then she changed and she went to med school and she became a doctor. But she still does cosplay. And the funny thing is, cosplay, once you get over a certain age or to a certain level, people like, I'm into making costumes, or I'm into costuming, not cosplay. Like, you kind of age out of using the word cosplay, but people commonly know cosplay now. You can say cosplay. It's right. Like, I know what you're saying. But most people, when they get to a particular age, they're like, I'm into costuming or costuming. But she says she likes to do it because the thing is, other than painting or sculpting, she's like, I can put this on myself and I can go out and I can have people see it and admire it, while I'm wearing it. And then I can take it off and I can put it in a bin or on a shelf. And then that's it. It's done. I've solved that problem. It's out of my mind. She's like, if I was still a painter or, like a three-dimensional sculptor, in order for people to see it, I would need some kind of gallery exhibit or something like that. So it's like, I get that. That makes sense.
Oh, that's interesting.
Kind of what I went through because I went from painting to sculpting to cosplay. So you see it like becoming like, from 2D to 3D to, a costume, a living thing. So
that's interesting. Yeah. So cons, am I hearing right that for people who see cosplay as an expression of their art, like cons are like your gallery, like one of your wow, interesting. Okay, I've never thought of it that way before.
I mean, some people purely just want to, they don't care how it looks, they just want to dress up and have fun,
right?
But some people, not that that's any better or worse or anything, it's just some people do like to. It is an art form. Yeah
No, I agree. I've seen some stuff, I mean, that I'm like, okay, that's like I said, there's an art to it. There's also an art to doing it well and doing it durably and all, like you were talking about. Like, I've got a couple of friends. I've actually tried to get them on the show. They're amazing. They make really amazing cosplay, but they're just not, they like to hang behind the scenes. They're not, they don't want to be out front and stuff like that. But I've seen what it takes to make a really good, like Hollywood level thing, and it's no small thing. So, and there's, I want to be clear on this. Anybody who wants to cosplay and enjoy it, then I've got respect for it if that's what they're into. If they want to dress up like whatever. But I've been around enough cosplay now where I can tell when somebody, they either paid a lot of money to have something made, or they put a lot of blood, sweat, and tears in to have something made, versus like a prefab one piece like leotard that has something printed on it. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. And I'm not down on that. Like if somebody wants to wear like, a Spider-Man or Spider-Woman or something that it's like, it's just a piece of fabric with everything printed on it, that's totally cool. I'm just saying, when you're talking about artistry, like I've seen some stuff, I'm like, okay, that's a one of a kind.
It's on another level, yeah.
Right, that's a one of a kind. That took a lot of whatever, so I could see that you're like, I can't wait to get to the con and see what kind of response I get to this, or what people think about it.
It's a weird thing to sit there and try to rationalize how much effort and money, planning, all this stuff that you put in, let's say at the front end of the project, because you'll spend weeks to months working on something, and all of that effort is because you might be at the convention for only half a day,
right?
So you've spent potentially weeks, 6 weeks, 3 months, whatever, getting this thing ready, and then you wear it for only like 3 hours, So in your mind, you're like, yeah, I want to make this worthwhile. You kind of want to be. There's a reason why the cosplayers will congregate in a particular area so that they are seen, so that people do take pictures of them. Because the thing is, when you're in the costume, you're not really able to take pictures of yourself,
right?
Mm-hmm. In some costumes, yeah.
So the thing is, you're trying to make all that effort pay some kind of dividends in some form, so that later when you do a search and you're like, oh yeah, my costume showed up here, my costume showed up there, I was in this video, in the background, you could see it, and then you're like, well, at least I got something out of it. There's a let's say a permanent record that I was in that costume,
right? Yeah, and it got some attention. That's one thing I noticed early on several years ago going to cons. I used to feel like, I don't want to bother them and ask them to take a picture with them. But now I'm like, hey, because I could tell that I don't think I've ever run into a cosplayer that wasn't like, yeah, let's take a picture. I mean,
we're there to take pictures of
right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I finally realized that it's not bothering them to ask to take a picture. So, and that's the thing you mentioned, the cosplayers gathering at cons. It's a big part of cons now. There's a smaller con that happens near where I live every June. And I mean, it's decent size, but it's not huge. And in fact, it's more of really, you know what I mean? When there's like vendor cons with a few panels, kind of like really, it's just all these vendors getting together, and then there'll be a few panels here and there, and then like a cosplay contest. And there are so many cosplayers. And I would say like 25% of the attendance at this thing are people cosplaying. So because it's like you got all these people in the area that want to go cosplay somewhere, right?
Yep.
So here's a good reason. And like you said, you see them all hanging around together, and and I love when they're like, okay, let's have the march of the con, and then the cosplayers will march around, and then they'll have the contest and all that, and you could tell it's a big deal for the cosplayers. Here's a chance to.
It is. There's MegaCon in Orlando, and for years and years, people. There's people that still do it now. They won't pay to actually go onto the convention floor and check out the artists and the vendors and the celebrities and all that stuff. They'll dress up and they'll hang out in the lobby because the lobby's more than big enough, and everybody has to pass through there to get into the convention floor, and they will just hang out there all day, and that's it. They've gone to MegaCon, but they didn't pay anything,
and their pictures show up everywhere.
Yeah, so. You'll see their pictures everywhere. It's like, they found a way.
So these are the life hacks of the veteran cosplayer. Hang out in the lobby.
The funny thing is, I like shopping. I like looking at toys. I like looking for weird stuff. And I always end up being in a costume where I can't see anything. So I'm just like walking around and like kind of looking at things.
Yeah, or you can't buy anything because you're like, I don't have my wallet, or it's going to be weird carrying it around now.
You did is it Merman from Masters? Mm-hmm. Could you see out of that one? That was like a full, okay. Yeah.
I can see out pretty good, but the thing is, you know, your sensors are all dulled. You can't see out well. You can't hear well. People can't hear you well. And then at the same time, you got like rubber gloves, so you pick up merchandise. There was just at Toylanta, I was going around and I'm looking at stuff, and there was they had some vintage DC comics cups. They had Wonder Woman and I think Batgirl and Supergirl. And I'm trying to talk to the guy. I'm like, how much are those cups? And he's like, what? And I'm like trying to just point.
Like, I'll come back with my mask off.
Yeah, exactly. Yep.
Is it so? Speaking of mask off, I remember there's one guy. He's like a social media personality, and he always wears a mask on his videos. So he went to a con, said, I'm going to be at this con. And he was walking around in his mask. Everybody knew who he was, interacted, And then later, on purpose, he went back to his room, took his mask off, put like a different shirt on, and went back down there anonymous. And he was talking about how interesting it was to be the two different people, I guess. So, I mean, do you experience much of that? Like it's really interesting how people treat me when I'm in costume versus, or do you ever like, I want to go interact with the same people that saw me in costume but out of costume and see how different it feels? Not to like trick them. I'm just talking about like the psychological nature of like wearing the costume versus not having the costume on. Is there any insights there? Or?
Johnny's costumes are usually more unrecognizable than mine, because my face is usually showing unless it's the leprechaun or something, or the robot. Metropolis robot or something, but
I was going to ask you about that. You're the first person I was looking through y'all's pictures, and I was really impressed that you did Metropolis. This is what I'm talking about. You guys cosplay a lot of different stuff. How did the Metropolis, and if everyone, there's a female android robot from the old 1920s, I think it's Fritz Lang, Metropolis movie that a lot of people say is the inspiration for C-3PO.
Yes.
So most people don't cosplay this wide variety of stuff. So how did that happen? What made you decide to do that? And did people know what it was?
Some people knew what it was. A lot of people thought I was gender bent C-3PO.
That makes sense.
Some people thought it wasn't real, that there was a little lady inside of there. They were like going over to John, like, are you controlling that thing? How we made it was actually right after we met. Well, we've known each other for a really long time, and then after we've been hanging out like once or twice, he asked me like, oh, what's one of your dream costumes? And I said the Metropolis robot's probably like one that's really high up there. And he's like, oh, mine too, but I need a lady to like build it around. So that's one of the reasons we really started making costumes together. But I think the first costume we worked on together was actually your creature from the Black Lagoon, because I remember coming over and helping you scale that thing.
Yeah, that was fun and disappointing all at the same time.
Did it not come out? Did it not come out as well as you wanted?
It was one of those things look better on a mannequin than they look on you type thing.
No,
it's like,
it looks great on you.
It's gonna be so awesome. It's gonna look great, and then it's just like get into it. You're like, I'm fat. I can't. I'm the fat creature from the Black Lagoon.
I'm the fat creature. I'm the creature from the Fat Lagoon.
Yeah, so, exactly.
How often does that happen where the concept looks great, looks good on a mannequin, you put all that time and effort, and then you put it on and you're like, it's just not working? I mean, how often does that happen? And then do you give up or do you revise?
If it doesn't look good, then we just revise usually.
Mm-hmm. So you usually don't just
John will throw it in the garbage, though.
I'll throw it in the trash. Yeah.
And set it on fire. And
I'll throw it in the
he will. I have pictures of the creature of the
Yeah.
Black Lagoon in the garbage.
Yep. I have. Yeah.
Wow.
I
Are
have.
you kidding me?
I have pictures of the creature and a
He's like, I hate it. Set it on fire.
And Manny faces. Yeah. I
the first version of Manny faces.
I don't want my failures like staring back at me or like to like haunt me. I have the personal memory of that, to scar me enough. I don't need to like look at it.
So you did a Skeksis. Is that the dark crystal creature?
Yeah.
I started a Skeksis, and it was
that'd be a hard one to do because it's almost like doing a big bird or something.
It was, and the thing was, I was trying to tackle it. I was trying to get away from the original puppet method, in which they had one hand in its head. The idea was to make it so that the user could have both hands free. But then on apparatus attached to each arm were actually cables or switches, and then in the head itself would have either like an electric solenoid or potentially a cable to move the mouth, and then the neck itself would be like one of those articulated snakes or dragons that everybody's 3D printing right now. The neck would be kind of like that. So the thing is, if you want to look left, well, you just lean your body left and the head would bend left. You want to look right and then you lean your body that way. And then the eye blink and all that stuff would be handled electronically as opposed to a puppet. That way, as a cosplayer, you could still use both hands. You have free range of motion. You're not walking around like this the entire time. And I got it up to a certain point, and then the head was skinned. We had sculpted everything, and it looked cool. The eyes were at about 70% of what I wanted to accomplish. The mouth worked terrific on like a cable system, kind of like what you would use for a mechanical type setup.
Right.
Electronically, it didn't work as well because I couldn't find anything strong enough to really push the latex mouth and all that stuff. So and then the deadline approached, and I'm like, nope, it didn't reach what I wanted it to do. I'm like, boop, just threw it in the trash.
So you didn't like? I love that you just chunked it. You're like,
that's him. I'm like, are you kidding me? And he's like, yep. And I don't.
Everybody's like, oh my god, I would be so proud if I made something that looked half as good as. I'm like, it's.
But then you have your own personal standard. I get it. I would have at least been like, I would have found like the neighborhood bully kid and left it like staring in his window or something.
Yeah.
The funny thing is, people are always like, well, don't just trash it. You just try to sell it. And I've tried to sell stuff in the past, and people are like, yeah. And
if it's halfway done
move
like that, they don't know what to do with it. So.
Right.
Exactly.
I think if it was fully made, then yeah.
Well, that kind of leads into one of the. I hadn't planned on bringing this up right now, but it's a natural progression. So, I mean, the stuff you've done, like I said, I could see this in movies, TV shows, whatever. Have you been asked, or has anyone seen your stuff at a con and been like, "I'll buy that off of you," or like you're talking about this incredibly intricate. Electronics and puppetry for the Skeksis. Have you been asked to do anything for like any productions or plays or anything like that? Has there been any overlap into that kind of world, or has it stayed purely in the, just cosplay at cons kind of thing?
Well, Johnny's been asked to, I won't say what like franchise, but like a short film for something we will probably be working on in the next, in the near future. Other than that, we get a lot of like people asking if we can make like them one, like can you kind of buy that off of you? But for plays and those things, I did help build the Beast for the Beauty and the Beast play for my brother, who was actually starring as the Beast in the show, and he was like, my sister makes great creature costumes. I'm going to hire her and her husband on to help me make this one. So we did build that.
And it ended up looking a lot like a Skeksis, because what you really did is you snuck out and you got the Skeksis out of the trash and said, "Here, this is your Beast costume." Yeah,
in record time.
Yeah.
Like, well, it's a strange looking beast, but it works. So I'm surprised. I mean, with the stuff you put on social media and the I guess the people that you've met at cons or something like that. I wouldn't be surprised if you didn't get asked to like, hey, we're making this show or something. Can you make us a prop or something like that? So I wouldn't be surprised if that happened. So I've got some of your social media pulled up here. I'm going to go through some of the pictures of costumes y'all have done. I want to ask you about them. But while I'm doing that,
people do like I can think of an occasion at a local convention that we do. There was a guy that was talking to me a lot because we built a life-size IG-88, and the head mechanism turns for the various eyes that are up there, and then again we made it so it's a partial puppet so that you can move the arms and close the hands and all that stuff. And the guy was asking, he's like, well, how much would that be? How much would it cost for you to make me something like that? And to try to tell people that even it's like trying to get them to understand that the labor is what kills it. Mm-hmm. Is that you can look at something and you're like, oh yeah, here's this 8.5 foot tall robot and it probably only costs about $120 in materials. Which is not labor. Right. Yeah. And it's like, but if I paid myself, and this is old school, this is, minimum wage from a couple of years ago. If I paid myself minimum wage, that thing would still cost over $1,000.
Right.
And they're like,
that doesn't surprise me at all.
They're like, what? Yeah, that's just how it is.
Right. There's a lot of effort, and minimum wage is not really a fair assessment because
exactly
you've got a lot of skills that you've developed and
right.
Whatnot. So here we go. I'm looking through some of your cosplays, and I want to bring up some of the ones that they all look great, but some of the ones that particularly catch my eye. Obviously, I've already talked about the War Duke and the She-Ra concept. Now, here's also one thing I like, because a lot of cosplayers will do one thing and stick with it. Now, Newt, who can do these like wonderful female characters, did the Leprechaun from the. So what's the story behind that? It looks really good. What
I love Warwick Davis in those Leprechaun movies. I just love it. So I was watching it and I'm like, that's not. It was my Halloween costume. I'm like, that's going to be my Halloween costume because I was watching it. I'm like, and that was so quick. That was such a fast build.
Fascinated by little people too. So anything with little people in it, she's automatically like
and stuff. Yeah.
She watches all those like documentaries on little people, and
I like to feel tall at 4'10". I like to feel tall. I guess.
Yeah. Do you ever do like a costume that had like just like 20-inch like platform shoes on it or something, so you could kind of like walk around?
I do like to make like my warrior women specifically. I give them like large heels.
Well, so the Leprechaun looks great. And speaking of Halloween, so do cosplayers, do you think of Halloween as amateur night?
Kind of, actually.
Johnny's nodding his head. He's like, yeah.
But that's so fun, though. It's so fun. Like last year when we did the bounty hunters for Critters, we had so much fun making it.
Y'all were the bounty hunters from Critters. See, y'all do a lot of deep cuts and a lot of wide. Yeah. I don't know if that's a deep cut, but you do a lot of wide. You don't do just one thing and camp out on it. I mean, you have a genuine love of like pop culture and geek culture, and that's what's really cool. That attracts me to what you're doing as well.
There's like we have over 100 years of like sci-fi and fantasy and what we would consider pop culture. So we don't need to confine ourselves to the 21st century. What's come out since 2000,
right?
Yeah.
Right.
No, I dig that. Like I said, I mean, if you're rocking the Leprechaun and the robot from Metropolis, I mean, that's pretty hardcore. And Johnny, I've seen, your War Duke. That's kind of a deep cut in certain niches. War Duke's very well known, but to the wider, audience. They're just like, oh, that's just a cool fantasy sword guy.
Yeah. Yeah,
So,
but I mean, we run across costumes that we don't know the character to, but because the character is so striking, or because the cosplayers put so much effort into it, it's instantaneous respect, because you're like, I don't know what that is, but that looks amazing.
All right, let me get back to looking through some of these pictures here. You've got a Bosk that is just amazing. Like I said, from just looking at these pictures, I'm like, well, that's the Bosk from the set. I mean, it just looks really good. So
I wish.
Dude, yours is better than the one from the set. We've seen close-ups of the one from the set.
Yeah.
And that was rough around the edges.
Was it pretty rough? Your merman from Masters of the Universe is. This is what I'm saying. I mean, that could be in a show. I mean, it just looks so good. It's like if people go search for Simple Tricks and Nonsense cosplay, we're going to the show notes at shaneplays.com for this episode, and I'll have links to their social media and their YouTube channel. A lot of their Masters of the Universe and G.I. Joe and other stuff, it's like the action figure came to life, but looks real, right? So it's like fantastic looking, but it's also real looking. So I don't know how to explain it. It looks so good. She-Ra. Yeah, go ahead.
That's usually like the measure, the benchmark. When somebody says you look like the action figure, or you look like an action figure, we won. Yeah, we won. You just gave us the gold star, because it's like, yep, thank you. That's what I was going for.
It's like a kid got a genie. The genie said, you have 3 wishes. And he said, I want this action figure to be real. And then boom, it's like this big, tall 6-foot
it's the
action figure walking around. Yeah, it looks really good. You got, you're doing Tila for Masters of the Universe. You got a couple of different She-Ras. Is it Hordak, the guy that came along and was like, Hordak. Skeletor, I'm taking over.
Yep.
So you got a great looking Hordak. I just don't even know. I mean, so much stuff here. You've got a video, Johnny, where you're like a classic Cobra soldier. And I agree. I wish the movies would have gone. I think the video says something like, I wish the movies would have made it look like, because it looks good. I mean, I could see that. It looks like fun and action and, all that. It doesn't have to be super gritty and look like, I don't know. It just looks really good.
There's a believability to it.
Right. Yeah. It can look fantastical or fantastic and look like it stepped out of a cartoon or off a comic book page, but still look believable. Mm-hmm. And I think that like, a lot of y'all's cosplay looks, you're, Newt does a Baroness from G.I. Joe that looks great. Were you doing Dr. Mindbender? I can't remember who you were doing.
I did Major Blood.
Major Blood, that was it.
Major Blood.
And then you also do, you like your Cobra Soldier and all of that. Stuff just looks so good. So do you, out of the, one of the questions I have, I don't want to forget to ask, both of you, do either of you have a favorite cosplay that you've done? Like, this is just my absolute favorite.
It's really hard to say now, but like, I would just, for personal reasons, my She-Ra, because I just am so in love with that character and what she meant to me as a little girl and everything. So,
well, let's talk about that. Talking about, cosplay, a big component of it is honoring characters or properties you admire. What was it about She-Ra that lives rent free in Newt?
Oh boy, she embodied everything I loved as a kid, because as a little girl, I wasn't like a girly girl, and I wasn't certainly wasn't a tomboy. I was like this in between. I liked Barbies and I liked action figures. Well, here's She-Ra, who's literally both, And I was really into Xena at the time, and I was really into Barbies too. And She-Ra's kind of like, she looks like Barbie, but she's kick-ass like Xena. So she's just like everything I liked, and I just thought she was just so kick-ass. And she literally like taught me to be a better kid, because I remember quoting her to my little brother who we fought all the time. And there's one quote from like the Trolls, what was it? It's not the Troll's Dream. I can't remember the episode, but where she literally tells the troll, like, well, fighting won't solve anything. Because I remember repeating her to my little brother when we were fighting. So that's
right. Taking the life lessons from
life lessons from She-Ra. But no,
in
she
today's
just stuck
episode,
with me, and that
today's episode we saw that
it's lucky.
Crime never pays. Yeah,
but no, it just stuck with me, and that fandom just stayed. You're fans of things, and then they fade through time, but certain things, they just stick with you and they grow. So, and that was She-Ra and Masters of the Universe for me.
So how big is, I like Masters of the Universe. I grew up with Masters of the Universe. I remember watching it on TV when it was that and Thundercats and, Transformers, G.I. Joe. I was watching all that stuff. How big is I like Masters of the Universe, but that's not like one of my main fandoms. How big is the fandom for Masters? Is it pretty big?
It's pretty big. Yeah, it's really big, and it's a very mixed bag of people.
Yeah, well, there's been so many different incarnations of it, right? There was the original cartoon from Filmation. Mm-hmm. There's a cartoon from like the 90s or 2000s.
2000, from the 2002 is when it came out.
A lot of people give it respect. I haven't seen it.
It's really good. It's a solid reboot of something. Mm-hmm.
And then they've got, other iterations. I liked, and I've risked the ire of the geek world, evidently. I didn't hate Revelations that came out, Mm-hmm. I didn't love everything they did about it, but I thought the animation was good and the action was good and the sound design was really good in it. And, I guess I just didn't realize that Masters of the Universe was still that big. Mm-hmm. So... do you see it a lot at cons? Like a lot of the cons I go to,
you don't see a lot of cosplays of it. Like the most cosplays I see of it is Skeletor and Evelyn.
Yeah,
I think a lot of guys are like, I can't be He-Man,
Right? Yeah, it's hard.
But those are the most I see. But that's not a whole lot. She-Ra, I do see a lot of She-Ras as well, but it's not like the most cosplay thing.
So have you ever thought about like spray painting your cat green and saying it's Cringer? No.
I accidentally dyed our cat green on accident.
Well, no. You can't. How do you accidentally dye a cat green
I'm
on
kidding.
Accident? Oh, you were kidding. I thought you really did it. No.
That's my excuse to John. It was an accident.
It was an accident.
Green.
But as long
Why
as
has he got a red saddle?
Why has he got a red saddle?
That's the strangest thing. It just happened.
It just fell on him.
Yeah, it was the strangest thing. So I'm looking here, Johnny. It looks like you did some Venture Brothers. This bee guy, moth guy, bee guy.
Yeah. I did Venture Brothers for a long time. We're still working on Venture Brothers now.
Yeah, we're working on it.
Yeah, for years and years, from about 2009 to 2016. There was a group of Venture Brothers fans that would meet at Dragon Con, and we'd always have we call it the Venture Brother Party. It was just a gathering, and the weird thing was everybody kind of like pushed each other and encouraged each other, because in that universe you have all these crazy knockoff characters that you would see in like DC or Marvel or G.I. Joe, whatever. And everybody's like, oh, well, I should do this character. I should do that. And in the show, they've created all these background characters that are just really ridiculous. They have like the stupidest names and gimmicks, but you're like, oh, I know exactly what they're ripping off for that. And like the community would take it upon themselves. They're like, oh, I'm going to be, like Septipus, or I'm going to be White Noise, or I'm going to be Miss Manny Faces, or Miss, just Plug Face, like this one and this one, this one. And these characters get like seconds of screen time. And the community is like, oh, I'm going to make a cosplay of that. It was really cool.
I, just by happenstance, I've gotten to know the guy that ran the animation studio in New York City that did the first 3 seasons of Venture Brothers, called Noodle Soup Productions, is here in Little Rock, and we've gotten to know each other. So he worked on like Doug. I tell him that he's the Forrest Gump of animators, because he just happened he's landed in all these great major, Batman the Animated Series and Disney stuff, and Doug from Nickelodeon. Yeah, so maybe one of these days I can put you all in touch. But yeah, his studio did the first 3 seasons. I'm terrible. I've never even watched it. I just know it's out there. Everyone, it's got a huge following. Everyone loves the Venture Brothers.
Very grass-rooted. I mean, the guys that worked on it, they did so much of the stuff themselves in-house. Very kind of, anytime you get 2 guys together that are like that, like Jim Henson and Frank Oz, or Laurel and Hardy, or Abbott and Costello, where they handle so much of it themselves. That's exactly how it was for those 2 guys, where in any particular episode, you watch it. And then I brought up this question to Newt. I said, do you think like the Screen Actor Guild rules apply to them? Because there used to be a rule where if you were a voice actor, you could only do X number of characters per episode. They had to give it to somebody else. But with these 2 guys, you'll watch an episode, and like in one episode, they've done 6 characters. So it's like, does it apply to them since they're the creators?
Yeah, since they're not hiring people to do it. I don't know.
Anyway,
that's interesting.
It's a great show.
Yeah, one of these days I'll check it out, because it's got so much love. And I was with a buddy of mine at a con, and my friend that owns the Noodle Soup that did the animation for the first 3 seasons. He was like, Vince, he lost it. He was like, Vince, that's the guy that did. And he ran over. I was like, I didn't realize it was that big of a deal. So, but I'm glad. I love it when shows resonate with people that strongly. So, all right. So, I have to ask you, Johnny, do you have a favorite cosplay you've ever done?
Really?
Just say Bosk.
I like Bosk.
Bosk looks great.
I like lizard people. It's like I gravitate.
Have you ever done a Slee Stack? Slee Stack?
I remember them. I liked them. You put a lizard person in anything, and it's automatically like,
you're all about guy. It.
Yeah.
You've not done the Gorn.
You didn't do the Gorn?
It's a weird thing, like to get away from humans, or to get away from me is like that departure, and lizard people really captured that. It's like, oh yeah, they're not human. It's not like an 8 person or. I'll make you a deal. If you'll do a Gorn, the classic, the original series Gorn from Star Trek, from Arena, I'll get a ripped up Captain Kirk t-shirt and I will randomly jump out and try to wrestle you at a con. Just at random moments. You'll have to keep looking, because we'll leave like little, because didn't they have like, well, here's gunpowder over here, and here's you're going to make a makeshift cannon and shoot some diamonds at me.
Whoever finds it first, I think we should do that. So, and I can do Kirk Fu. Yeah, I'll do Kirk Fu. I can do some Kirk Fu. So
that'd be really slow.
Like really slow motion.
Really I'll just clasp my hands together and pound you in the back. So now we'll do that. Awesome. If you Gorn it up, I'll Kirk it up.
If I Gorn it up. It's called Gorn Hub.
Whoa. That's a niche right there. So, okay, so maybe Bosk was a favorite, according to me.
I like Bosk. The thing is, I did a Blind Dead costume. I have my Skeleton Warrior. I like the Skeleton Warrior
was great. The action on the jaw on that Skeleton Warrior was great. I've seen where you had the video of where you're moving the jaw around and everything. Yeah,
like the Reanimated Dead is cool, to me, because it's like the idea that you're some unstoppable force,
right?
and there's like a kind of a power play there where it's like, oh yeah, like you can't stop me because I'm already dead kind of thing. I like those guys. You could do
like a leech or a lich from D&D, be like a Sararak. I don't know if D&D is one of your like fandoms or not, but there's a lot of undead in there, man. Famous undead too.
I like space pirates, so Han Solo and Captain Harlock and Captain Nathaniel.
Captain Harlock. See, this is what I'm talking about, man. You got a wide range there. Yeah. All right. So Han Solo, can we assume that Simple Tricks and Nonsense is the name of your cosplay is from the Han Solo quote in the 1977 Star Wars? All right. It's just a lot of Simple Tricks and Nonsense. So that's a good name. Yeah. That's a good name. Okay. I got another question for you because I know that you're into G.I. Joe. Cobra-La, yes or no?
No.
No? You're not down with Cobra-La?
So that was Hasbro copying Mattel's homework. That was, He-Man is a big hit. He-Man is fantasy. We need to go in a direction where we're introducing more fantasy into this. So it's like, let's come up with, instead of Shangri-La or, instead of Xanadu or something else in the Himalayas that's just beyond the next mountain, we're going to have Cobra-La.
You're one of the few people I know that have made that connection.
I get what you're doing. You're trying to inject fantasy into this so that you can, try to get more kids to buy that. And that was something that both sides did going on.
Yeah. Yeah, you saw He-Man moving more into, space and whatever.
Yeah. With New Adventures, it became like G.I. Joe, where you had a specialist diver and you had a specialist guy and you had a specialist this. Right. So like, you're copying Hasbro's homework. And then Hasbro's busy like Street Fighter and Jurassic Park and like everything else is like, we get what you're doing. You're playing trends.
Yeah, well, people forget it's a business, and they think that if we do this, it's just like I went in. Well, first of all, Cobra-La, you're one of the few people. It should be blazingly obvious, but Cobra-La is a play on Shangri-La. They were in the wintry Himalayan mountains, and they found this fantasy land.
Like even as a little kid,
that's Shang. I was watching it a few years ago, and the light suddenly went off. I was like, "Oh, Shangri-La! It's Cobra-La." The thing that bugs me, and I'm allowed to be, I'm a geek, so I'm allowed to be bugged by an animated movie that came out in the '80s that's based on toys. I didn't like how they retconned Cobra Commander to be and then they turned into a snake and all that. So,
no, I mean, I like the designs, like
the techno-organic.
Like Nemesis Enforcer is awesome.
Yeah, super cool.
I love the designs. The designs are cool. Yeah. I think they needed to be in G.I. Joe. No. Is it okay for G.I. Joe to have like super science or some supernatural elements occasionally? Fine. Sure. Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah.
But you prefer it more grounded in reality.
Mm-hmm. Well, the whole thing was G.I. Joe is supposed to be the good guy military versus terrorists. That's the conceit of G.I. Joe, and they with the movie. But both of those movies for Transformers and G.I. Joe did pretty big status quo changes. Like I went in, I was a huge Transformers fan, still am, G1 Transformers all the way. And I went and saw Transformers the movie. I was like 14 or something. I don't know how old it was. Whenever it came out, 86, I think. I came out of the movie like what just happened? It was like that wasn't the Transformers I knew. Now I've come to love that movie over the years, but at the time it was like shell shock.
It was. Weren't you kind of like in a state of mourning or a state of shock? Where you were like, you felt like you were in limbo. Like, okay, what do I like now? And it wasn't when the new series came out and they were actually playing upon the characters that they introduced, and they were expanding on what's happening with Starscream and Rodimus Prime and all that stuff. You're like, okay, I'm getting it now. All right, you're helping me transition to it.
Yeah,
but that window, that window between the movie and not getting anything new, you're like,
what happened?
I don't know what to do.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I was like, I came out like, what just happened? And, now I love that I could watch Transformers the movie all day long. It's just such an amazing piece of animation. And it's a good Transformers story. But yeah, at the time I was like, what did, and now I understand.
You had time for that shock to wear off and for things to really seep in how they are. Kind of thing. And
but they're also, and the same thing with G.I. Joe introducing like Hawk and Lady J and all that. They got to sell more toys. Right. Yeah. So like Transformers, the movie was like out with the old, in with the new. Let's sell new. Yep. There was supposed to be, y'all probably know this with your knowledge of geek culture, but there was supposed to be a scene in the movie where it was like Charge of the Light Brigade, where all the G1 Transformers you already knew were like and just got cut down and killed. And then, so get rid of them. And, so thankfully they didn't do that. They just killed off some other characters. But
the weird thing is that's very adult thinking, and you're trying to apply that to kids who have like memories and stories that they've conducted with their toys, and they're like, "Wait, you're telling me I need to trash this now after all these memories?"
Right, you just killed Ironhide.
No. Yeah, exactly.
And it just hurt kids. It just made them cry.
It really did. I don't think they understood. In fact, I know they didn't. There's,
in their heads, they'll throw that toy away and buy our new toy. No, they're like, no, that's going to break that kid's heart. They love these things.
There were kids that were like traumatized by Optimus Prime. I mean, there's a story. I don't know if it's true or not, but it goes around that some kid like locked himself in the bathroom and wouldn't come out for a long time because Optimus Prime died. So, yeah. But anyway, all right, so Cobra-La, where Cobra-La is either a horizontal thumb or a thumbs down. Sounds like a thumbs down.
It's a thumbs down. I admire the characters and the character designs. It's even Serpentor. I like the concept of him and the idea. I didn't want him to stick around as long as he did.
Yeah. Well, the thing with Serpentor that bugs me is anytime I go back and watch that 5 episode where they introduced him, I'm like, no, let him get all the DNA and really be a super threat, right? I mean, I wish that would have happened. So
yeah, and then at the same time, have some kind of weird chink in his armor, where it's like, oh yeah, he's this superhuman, and he's all smart and tactical, but at the same time, either he's deteriorating faster because of the cloning process, or he's mentally unstable because of the cloning process. Mm-hmm. And then that way you can write him out later and be like, oh, he's gone.
Right. Get rid of him. But while he's there, he's like, it's a super threat. Yep. Yeah. And I love in that 5 episode miniseries or 3, or whatever it was when they introduced him, where like all the Joes are like out of shape and they're kind of sucking, and Sergeant Slaughter shows up and is like, you guys all suck, and starts whipping them into shape. Or that one scene where there's like 100 like bat androids and Sergeant Slaughter just dives into them, and that's so great. So cheesy, but I love it. I love it so much. So, all right, I got to move us on, get us back into cosplay. Do you have... Do either of you have like a holy grail cosplay that you still want to get to, that you think is like, it's too hard to do right now, but you hope you work your way to it? Or, do either of y'all have something like that?
Yeah. Ray Harryhausen and Medusa from Clash of the Titans.
Man, I have no on all cylinders.
How I would do it, but I have an idea of how we would do it, but yeah, that one.
Wow.
She wants the sound effect too. She wants it so that there's speakers hidden into it, and it makes it look.
And I want the tail. I want the tail to move.
Wow, that would be super cool. I'm a big Harryhausen fan, and most people.
Him. God, I love him. Ever since I was a little kid, I was just enchanted by his work.
It's great. I mean, and most people, I'm sure most people that are into this stuff know. I mean, the Clash of the Titans was like his last or one of his last big works where he really got to show his stuff off. So, I can still see that cracking. Like, I was just talking about Clash of the Titans with somebody the other day, and I can still feel the spray of the water in that Kraken scene. It just seems so cool when I was a kid. Yeah. All right. So Medusa from Harry Harryhausen's Clash of the Titans. Does that mean that Johnny would just have to dress up like somebody turned into stone?
Be awesome.
And you'd have to drag him around in a wagon.
I was hoping you'd be Perseus with a head of Medusa, just like walking around.
That'd be pretty cool.
Looking in my shield the whole time.
Yeah. So what? Like, do you have a Holy Grail cosplay there, Johnny?
I have a bunch. Yeah, there's a bunch where I really like the design of the new on the Netflix Lost in Space, the new robot for Lost in Space. I love that thing.
That's gorgeous.
Yeah, it's so cool looking.
Danger, Will Robinson. Yeah.
That one. I want to do a good Batman Beyond costume at some point.
Yes.
What else?
Robocop. That's
sweet. Yeah. Murphy.
Yeah. She'll dress up as Lewis.
Yep.
Yeah, you be Lewis.
Dress up as Lewis with the helmet. And
Yeah. You guys are just dropping references left and right. So, so would you do the Murphy with or without the full?
Oh, it would definitely be with the visor.
Yeah.
I would say he would use the sound effects, but he can already do them with his mouth. So as we found out with your old high school friend, we run into a random friend at a friend of his from high school at Walmart, and we're like just chatting, and he's like, "By the way, do you still do the RoboCop impression?"
I haven't seen this dude for like 30 years.
And he's asking about your RoboCop.
And the first thing he says, like, I have not seen this dude since like 1993. And like the first thing he said, you still do a good RoboCop? I'm like,
and I'm dying because I'm like, he does.
I don't know if I do or not. I'm like, all right. So, well, do you want to give us a demonstration? Do you feel like doing a RoboCop?
Right.
No, you're all right with that? All right.
So, okay, let me clarify. And I had to clarify to Newt, like, where that was coming from to put it into context. It wasn't just like the voice and the sound effect of the walking. At my work, I worked with this guy at a movie theater. And the movie theater was so cheap that we only had like one dumpster in the back. And in the summertime, it would get super busy. So the dumpster would get full, and you would need some way to compact it so that you could get more trash in it. So we would take the Coke boxes, like the boxes that the Coke syrup would come in, and we would put them on our legs. And we would climb into the dumpster and hold on to the dumpster rail and jump up and down with boxes on our feet.
These are like 16-year-old kids.
Yeah, it's to compact the trash because our work was so cheap that they wouldn't get a second dumpster. But the thing was, when you had those boxes on your feet and you're walking, it forced you to walk like Robocop. So, like, it was so easy to just do the hard pivot. You know, you're like, you walk. But
you would just have to do the sound effects.
Exactly. Yep. So that's where that came from.
Well, that makes it even better. So, a lot of that movie was shot in Dallas, actually.
Yeah.
I've got friends that, they'll go and like they added some matte paintings and like they took buildings and added like a second floor to them. But yeah, my friend was like put a picture on Facebook. It's like, here's the place where RoboCop shot that dude in the junk, so they were finding all the, they were finding all the locations. So such a great movie. That movie is still, so I saw that in the theater and I was just totally blown away.
It became like The Simpsons in the things that it predicted. Because the commercials were like, oh, France unveils a new neutron bomb. I'm like, and that happened in the late 90s. We're like, the French have, it's like, oh.
Well, that's one of the reasons that the first one hits so hard. It's because it's an amazing sci-fi action movie, but there's a lot of satire and commentary in it, where the other two don't have that. The other two's is still the second one's still a good action movie, but it doesn't have that. If I remember right, the same director did Starship Troopers, and the first Starship Troopers has a lot of commentary and satire in it as well. But yeah, I still love where the commercial for the anti-theft, was that the first one or the second one where the thief steals the car and like gets electrocuted to death or something like that? Was that the second one where they had that one? All right, moving us right along. I'd love to see a good RoboCop cosplay, so I hope you get to pull that off sometimes.
He's been practicing the walk since he was 16.
Shut up.
Yeah, right? Yeah. But see, your RoboCop, you'll also have to stomp around in Coca-Cola boxes, and people won't get that. But a couple of people will get it. A few people, the people that matter, will understand what that's about. So, okay. So I got to wind us down here. Wanted to ask a couple more things that I had notes on. You're free to mention anything else that you want. What is at one point I saw it was one of you or both of you or something. I think you were being promoted for an appearance at a con. And it said pro cosplayer under the name. So what is pro cosplayer? Is that a thing in the industry that people want? I mean, what does that mean?
I'm not sure what that means, but apparently we're it.
You're pro cosplayers. Okay.
I think there's different levels.
Yeah, there are people like Yaya Han, who is a pro cosplayer. She's making millions of money on selling fabrics and patterns and appearing at conventions. But I think we're kind of on a really much smaller level of that. We're not making nearly as much money as her. We're just kind of the eye candy, I think, for cons, which is cool. It's awesome going out to cons and like meeting people, but yeah. I'm not sure exactly what that means. If somebody told me pro cosplayer, I think of Yaya Han, and I don't see myself at that level,
Okay, that's fair. I was just curious what it, does it simply mean that, because some people say professional just means that in some way you get compensated for it,
right.
Pro from amateur, or there could be something else going on there. So,
it could just
like
mean
people,
that you're just really, really good at your craft. So.
Right.
Yeah.
I got you. So that was one of the questions I was going to ask. Do you have any cosplayers or cons or anybody you want to give shout outs to? As cosplayers, who do you admire?
I'll let Johnny go.
Oh, well, I mentioned her earlier. Our friend Kendall.
Yeah.
She goes by Molotov Bailey. And
Molotov Bailey?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
She's got she's into a lot of Henson stuff. She's into a lot of puppeteering. She does a great Master Splinter from the Ninja Turtles movie. She does really good. She can take a concept and turn it. She does what I would call conceptual costumes, which is like, I'm going to make a ball gown that resembles a structure. She won contests like the Dark Crystal Ball, where she's got the crystal castle.
She's a puppeteer as well as a cosplayer. So.
Yeah. Okay.
She'll interpret that into her costumes, so her dress will blink, have eyes on it that blink and stuff. So she's insanely good at costumes. Insanely good.
She's got. Everybody has their own philosophy about how to get things done and why they're doing it, why they're into it, what they're trying to accomplish with it, and seeing how her mindset is to just get it done just enough to get like that one day, to have it look good for that one day, and then that's it. She never wants to revisit it again. To me that's foreign, because I'm like I want to make this thing and I want to keep it.
Right.
I want to be able to put it on whenever I want. And just
but for her, it's like almost like a poem. It's just like, or it's ephemeral or whatever. Yeah. So that's cool. I just
she's like, I already climbed that mountain. Why do I need to climb that mountain again?
Yeah.
And that's the mark. That's a mark of somebody who's taken their art to to a whole different level. It's I don't know. I don't have that mindset, but I can respect somebody who does. I just follow her on Instagram so I can keep up with what she's doing. Speaking of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, what do y'all think of the new movie coming out? I think the animation looks pretty sweet on the new movie coming out.
I saw the poster at my work, but I haven't seen it.
Yeah, my son and I went and saw Spider-Verse, and they played the trailer, and I wasn't interested. I was like, what? More turtles? I'm not down on turtles, but I'm like, not needing more turtles movies, if that makes sense. But that animation looked really, really, really good.
Animated stuff tends to always do better, in my mind.
Yeah, like even in Spider-Verse, that was I've not seen the second one, but it was the first one was so good.
The second one's good. I mean, it's very good. The first one's so hard to top because it's not only is it great animation, but it's also the hero's journey, right? It's got that origin story and all that. But the second one's really good, great animation, a lot of fun. So, but anyway, yeah, it's if you get a chance to check out the trailer for the new Turtles movie, I was pretty impressed with it. So
well, I always say that if you want to look at the people most passionate about whatever the thing is, or the biggest geeks in the office, it will be the animators.
Right.
So often you see these behind the scenes interviews with people, and they're like, "Well, yeah, I've never read the comic, or I don't know the character, but I think the whole story is about family, or I think the story is about relationships."
I want to turn the Incredible Hulk red.
It's like, why can't we make the Incredible Hulk red? Stuff like that, and you're just like, dude, why was that guy hired?
Yeah.
Meanwhile, when you watch like an animated movie, like one of the Marvel animated ones, or some of the direct to DVD or Blu-ray DC ones, or Spider-Verse, or this or that, and the animated ones, it's like, oh my, they get it, they know, like those are the truest. They think in that space,
Right? No, I hear you. Yeah, there's, I love the MCU. I'm a big geek. I watch all the Marvel movies, but DC has been kicking Marvel's tail animation for decades now.
Oh God, yeah.
I mean,
definitely.
I buy all the new DC animated movies when they come out, and check them all out. But I can't take anything away. The MCU has done great with its movies and TV shows, but DC, and I'm not even just talking about the old Batman animated series and Justice League, and I'm talking about even they're putting out 2 or 3 animated movies.
Yeah.
A year, and I get them all. Yeah, I get every one of them. So, all right. So, are there any conventions or any other shout outs or anything that you're going to be doing soon? Any appearances or stuff you're working on you want people to know about?
So our next convention's in August, and it's going to be PowerCon, which is August 11th to the 13th in Columbus, Ohio. And for that, I'm bringing Chitara, Golden Girl, and Shikoti from Masters of the Universe. All
right. What about you, Johnny? Do you know what you're bringing yet?
Oh, yeah. I'm bringing Lord Mask to go with her Shikoti from Masters of the Universe. Mum-Ra to go with her Chitara. Yeah. And then I'm bringing the inspiration for War Duke. I'm bringing Death Dealer. So.
Sweet. All right. In a SmackDown contest, who wins? Talking smack. Starscream, Cobra Commander, Skeletor, or Mum-Ra? Who's going to talk the most smack?
Oh, Skeletor.
Oh, yeah.
Skeletor? Come on.
I don't know. No.
I mean, Cobra Commander has some smack for sure. It would end up with them both just like obliterating everybody, I think.
Mum-Ra got a lot done. Mum-Ra got a lot done.
But it's
actually got stuff done. Or okay, let's take Megatron. Let's take Mum-Ra out and put Megatron in.
Starscream was such a whiner, though.
Dear goodness, I love him so.
Such a whiner. But Cobra Commander, he had he would give speeches ahead of time. He would give speeches during, and then he would sit there and lament afterwards. So.
And whenever there was spittle behind the mask when he was really good. I mean, there was spittle behind that mask when he was really, really in the swing of things. But Skeletor is the best. I will destroy you and blah blah blah. And yeah, does he say nya or nya? I never.
He doesn't say that.
I thought I could swear
he's never actually said.
Is that what do you call that?
He's never
the Mandela
said
Is that the Mandela effect?
Earlier this year, I think.
Really?
I think it is because he's never said that once.
I could swear I remember him going, yeah. So I don't know.
He's never said that until this year officially
It's the Mandela effect. Well, it's just like Humphrey Bogart never said "play it again, Sam," but everyone would swear that he did.
Yep.
So. All right, I'm gonna wrap us up. I can't tell you how much I've enjoyed it. I love looking at your art, your work.
Thank you.
Look forward to keeping up with you both. Maybe I can have y'all back on to update on what you're up to, and then just have a good old geek session. Sometimes my episodes are just geek. What are you geeking out on? Let's geek.
Yeah.
So I always end the show. I call it the bad joke of the week. But this show's not weekly anymore, but I still call it the bad joke of the week because it has a nice ring to it. So Here we go. You ready?
Yep.
All right. Where does He-Man keep his towel?
Where does He-Man keep his towel?
By the shower of Grayskull. You're not supposed to laugh. Yeah, that's the right response, Johnny. You're not supposed to go. That was terrible. All right.
That's a dad joke.
I'm used to the dad joke from this one up here. I'm very used to the dad jokes.
Why is it dark in Skeletor's castle?
Why?
Because He-Man has the power. All right. Anyway, it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much for coming on. Yeah, so we've been talking with Johnny Havoc, a.k.a. John McDonald, and Newt, a.k.a. Rebekah McDonald of Simple Tricks and Nonsense. Go check them out. Go to the show notes at shaneplays.com. I'll have links to their stuff. Or just search for Simple Tricks and Nonsense Cosplay. You'll find them, all kinds of cool pictures and stuff that you need to check out. We'll catch you next time on Shane Plays. Thanks so much for listening to Shane Plays Geek Talk. I certainly hope you enjoyed this journey into the things we love. For your convenience, show notes with helpful links for each episode can always be found at shaneplays.com. You can catch the podcast in several places, including on the blog at shaneplays.com, iTunes, Google Play Music, Stitcher, Podbean, Amazon Music, Verbal, YouTube, and more. If you like what you hear and would like to support Shane Plays Geek Talk, you can do so for as little as $1 per episode on Patreon at patreon.com/ShanePlays. Thanks again for listening, and we'll see you next time. Stay geeky, my friends.